By the time the Santa Fe reached La Junta, it had entered somewhere with real competition. The Denver and Rio Grande Railway Company, based in Denver, Colorado, was founded in 1871 by William Jackson Palmer, who had his own vision for the network, relying on two key branches, a north to south transcontinental railway that would ultimately reach Mexico, and another one that goes east to west that would have cut through the Colorado mountains towards Salt Lake City. Palmer viewed Colorado as a land of opportunity, with abundant natural resources on the plains and the mountains, and in his opinions, the best possible track gauge for the mountains of Colorado would be the 3-foot track gauge. Palmer's choice would have worked perfectly fine if his company was the only one in the state of Colorado. However, in 1877, that would have changed with the arrival of the Santa Fe Railway Company from Kansas. Palmer didn't know what to make of his new competition, but he did know that if he didn't adapt quickly enough, his own network could be isolated due to his decision-making with the track gauge. These two companies would have ultimately clashed over their ambition, as whoever managed to secure Colorado would have ultimately prevailed. In that hyper-capitalistic era, the idea was not, in fact, to build a railroad so much as to create a financial vehicle to make money off a railroad, while leaving its actual management to trained professionals like Strong, who had little financial stake in the enterprise. Both these companies set themselves apart from the other, with the Santa Fe leadership being more akin to a modern-day corporation, being owned and operated by a group of investors based in Boston, Massachusetts, the farthest distance from what is considered the American West. It didn't help that the Santa Fe was best suited for this task, since it could take on more debt and invest in more projects that would generate more long-term income for investors. The Rio Grande Company leadership was something else, which Palmer mainly managed himself. He recruited other people to join his board, not as investors in the company, but as family. God, Palmer had such a weird system for a company leadership. This unusual system he has established for the company to operate was a way to showcase its operations as a company of friends, rather than what he called the Santa Fe, a soulless corporation with its CEOs and boards. Palmer focused on using the money that he raised from his wealthy backers on the East Coast and in Europe. Unlike Santa Fe, he did not have the same financial freedom, but Palmer had a vision for this fledgling railway company by expanding southward along the Rio Grande River to the Gulf of Mexico, and he would over time connect to Mexico and create a true international rail network. There's one thing standing between the Rio Grande Railway and its goals: the Raton Pass. The Santa Fe Railway Company was also eyeing that same pass too. William Barstow Strong, now a general manager, began examining the best course of action for the Santa Fe's future. He knew that his company needed to grow or die by extending the Santa Fe Railway network to its goal in Santa Fe, and later to connect with the Southern Pacific's line in Deming, New Mexico. He remembered two things. The best way to go west was to go south, which meant crossing the Raton Pass on the Colorado-New Mexico border. The second is that the Santa Fe should not get bogged down in setting up lines in the mountain passes for any silver or gold rush, since it would only benefit them in the short run, but next thing you know, you just have a bunch of tracks and mountains that don't really go anywhere. The two men understood that if each of their companies wanted to succeed, they had to outdo each other in the bids for the mountain routes, since it would control their company's destiny. So now, the Santa Fe and Denver crews were racing towards the new towns of Trinidad and Elmora. There are only two problems with the Raton Pass for both railway companies. There's only enough space for one track, and they need to buy the land rights from Richie Uncle Dick Woodton. Strong decided he needed to hire someone who was familiar with the land and had a good working relationship with Woodton. Enter Ray Moore, the best possible person to survey the route. Ray Moore, at the time, was the estate manager of the Maxwell Land Grant and Railway Company, which leased the pass to Wootton, so he can build and operate a toll road access on the Raton Pass, which can be still seen to this day and in historic drawings. Strong basically told him to survey the pass in disguise so he wouldn't raise suspicion among any would-be Rio Grande employees in the area. With the help of Wootton, Morley managed to disguise himself as a Mexican sheep herder on the pass while examining the best possible route on the pass. After spending some time in the mountains near and on the Raton Pass, Morley realized through his notes that the best possible path for a railroad tracks is to tunnel through the hills to get around the curves and switchbacks of the old Santa Fe Trail. He sent his reports to the Santa Fe Company, which Strong then presented it to the board in Boston about the best course of action regarding the pass. The board essentially informed Strong that Santa Fe would not be providing any funding to build a tunnel for the tracks, but that would not deter Strong from finding an alternative route through the pass. After setting up Plan B for the pass, Strong sent the Santa Fe lawyers to negotiate the terms with the Maxwell Land Grant estate to buy the rights to the pass. But first, Strong needed one last thing: a railroad charter from the territorial legislative, allowing him to bring a railroad into New Mexico. To secure one, he enlisted the politically connected Don Miguel Estero, who had served as a New Mexico legislative. So while Strong was dealing with the territorial government of New Mexico, Palmer was taking his sweet time working on another project that was much more urgent than controlling a major mountain pass. After finishing up connecting his network to a coal bed, he decided that now was the best time to hire someone to survey the Raton Pass for his company. Robinson caught wind of two significant developments involving the Rio Grande. The first being that they were willing to hire Morley to survey the pass, who told him no. The other news is that Robertson has heard that John Armstrong McMurray, the Rio Grande chief engineer, had decided to conduct their own survey of the pass. Robertson quickly passed this information to Strong, explaining that they needed to dig the Raton Pass tunnel now if they wanted to keep it. Strong sent a message via the telegraph to Santa Fe President Thomas Nickerson regarding the need to obtain permission and funding for the tunnel construction right now. Nickerson agreed, but it would only give Strong a total of $20,000 and permission to start work later in the spring. "You have already spent that much. No matter. You'll get more money later." And there was no time to lose. He fired off a coded message to Robertson at Pueblo: "Seize and hold the Raton Pass." While Santa Fe was hurtling over to the pass to lock it down, Palmer knew something was off, as there was no construction underway west of Pueblo or south towards Trinidad. All he had was a coded message from Strong to Boston and his own gut feeling. And his gut feeling telling him to fire off a telegraph message to his chief engineer, McMurtry, to get on a train bound to Elmore to see if he can work out a deal with Wootton. The next day, McMurtry and his group of men made it up to the pass to see that the Santa Fe work crew has already started construction on the tunnel. When they found out that the Santa Fe has beaten them to it, several members of the crew pulled out pistols. But an eccentric Uncle Dick made it clear that not only was the Santa Fe first, but he liked them better anyway. The Santa Fe had managed to start construction of the tunnel with Wootton's direct permission and the help of locals from Trinidad, Colorado, which gave them the necessary victory to beat out the Rio Grande at the nick of the time for the rights. McMurtry and his crew were crushed since there was no other way for them to go over the Raton Pass now that the Santa Fe had beaten them to the punch. The aftermath of the Santa Fe strong-arming techniques to force the Rio Grande out of the pass marked the beginning of the Colorado Railroad War in 1879. And this particular railroad war marks a pivotal moment in the most significant conflict of interest among railroad companies, nationwide, which often gets overlooked. The government frequently attempts to mitigate disagreements between the competing businesses, fearing such disrupts would threaten politics and interests in the infected territories or states. Palmer knew that he could not afford to lose another mountain pass if he wants his company to succeed, so when word reached him about the silver rush in the city of Leadville, Colorado, and the massive population growth it was experiencing, Palmer knew that he needed to connect not just the silver mines to his network, but also another would-be major city. The only thing standing between Leadville and the Colorado Front Range for Palmer is Canton City. And just like the past, there will be only enough room for one set of tracks. The Royal Gorge also had another problem that sets it apart from the Raton Pass, the Arkansas River. Not surprisingly, that another company is also eyeing the Royal Gorge, and that is the Santa Fe again. Despite Palmer fearing Santa Fe taking Leadville, since it was on Strong's mind that year, Palmer did not know that Santa Fe was in no position to reach Canton City. The closest place to Canton City that the Santa Fe Railway served is Pueblo, which is about 40 miles away. But you know who is in Canton City? The Rio Grande Railway Company. Like a game of Texas Hold'em, these two men are having to bluff their way out with the worst cards that they have been dealt with. Palmer didn't want to reveal to Strong that he was planning to head over to Canton City, and Strong didn't want to signal to the fact that the Santa Fe was in no position to win the Royal Gorge. The best plan for both of them and their companies is to bluff and keep raising the stakes of this card game. The stakes have started to raise after McMurtry reported to Palmer that the spies from the Santa Fe has been spotted in Canton City, scouting the area around the Royal Gorge for a future line. He told Palmer that he would be ensured his actions not to reveal what the Rio Grande is up to regarding the Santa Fe. Meanwhile, Strong also told Robertson to keep an eye out for any activities among the Rio Grande, especially if they are relocating their workers from Trinidad, since if they are actively moving the workers from there, that means they're about to seize the Royal Gorge for themselves. Sure enough, early on the morning of April 19th, Robertson noticed fewer Rio Grande workmen in Raton than there has been the day before. He sent some spies to snoop around, and they reported spotting at least 100 Rio Grande workmen, plus horses, mules, and equipment, at the Elmore station waiting to board a train. Seeing what was happening, Strong fired off a message to Robertson, ordering his men to hold and grade the canyon floor of the Royal Gorge to deny the Rio Grande that opportunity again. The Rio Grande staff managed to stop Robertson at Elmore while he was en route to Canton City. However, they were unable to stop Morley, who slipped into the gorge around midnight. This significant development marked a new chapter in the Colorado Railroad War, which ended with some bloodshed, paperwork, and newspaper fighting. While the battle for the Royal Gorge unfolded in Colorado during the second half of 1879, the Santa Fe quickly moved towards its goals in New Mexico. After completing the Raton Tunnel in December of 1878, the Santa Fe finally reached the small town of Las Vegas, New Mexico on July 4, 1879. Finally, in the next year, the Santa Fe made it to the namesake of the company, but Strong wasn't at the celebration for it. He personally believed that Santa Fe, New Mexico should be considered only as a way station rather than a significant stop on the railroad.